Hello everybody and welcome to the Boxing Locker with me, Matt Goddard, and this is my breakdown of Gervonta Tank Davis, who is arguably the best puncher in boxing and without question one of the top 10 pound for pound fighters on the planet. Your position for him within those 10 is up for debate, but we're not going to talk about that today. Today I'm going to give you a brief background of Gervonta's boxing record and his kind of bio. And then I'm going to go into the breakdown of what makes him such a fantastic fighter. Okay, so first and foremost, Tank is now 30-0 with 28 knockouts. It's like a 93% knockout ratio, which is crazy. I believe it's the highest knockout percentage of any current world champion, I believe. I would imagine Inoue is close to that, but pretty impressive anyway. He's 29 years old. He's a southpaw. He's 5'5"-ish, 5'5.5" maybe, height-wise, and he has a good reach of 67.5 inches. He's got an extensive amateur background with a great record, but more importantly, unbeaten as a professional. He's boxed a lot of fantastic names. Some of those names kind of include, but started with really Jose Pedraza, who was 22-0 at the time that Tank beat him by TKO. Liam Walsh, my British compatriot, who I remember watching that fight, and Walsh was so far out of his depth, it was crazy. TKO against Walsh. Then he went on to box Fonseca, who was unbeaten but had a draw 19-0-1 at the time. Knocked him out. Queller, 28-2 at the time, TKO. Then he boxed Yuriorkis Gamboa, who, I mean, he was a little bit past his best, and to be honest, it kind of there was an element of him being shown to have a bit of a weakness in the pro ranks, but an exceptional boxer nonetheless. He was 30-2 when Tank got him with TKO. Then, of course, there is I would argue, one of the 3 or 4 best uppercut knockouts in boxing history. And that was the uppercut against Leo Santa Cruz. Unbelievable punch delivery, shot selection, timing, big knockout. And then this is a fight that's kind of matured incredibly well since this fight. The defeat of Mario Barrios, who was 26-0 at the time by TKO. Barrios obviously gone on to fight some other big names and do some good things in boxing. So I actually think that's one of Tank's best wins, especially when you watch that fight back and you see how hard the fight was. Pitbull Cruz, he was 22, 1 loss, 1 draw at the time. That was a unanimous decision, one of only 2 fights that Tank hasn't finished by KO or by knockout, one way or the other, knockout, TKO. Hector Luis Garcia was 16-0 at the time that Tank beat him. And then, of course, he went on to beat Ryan Garcia, who was 23-0 at the time of Tank beating him. Garcia gone on with a lot of controversy to defeat Devin Haney. That fight's now been overturned as a no contest. I can't even talk about that. The whole thing is frustrating. And then, very recently, boxed the Ghost, Frank Martin, who I think is a very good boxer, and presented a few challenges early on for Tank. But once he figured him out, he got that excellent uppercut overhand knockout. Really, really well delivered. So that's Tank Davis. Unbelievable record, great fighter, great skill set. And let's now get into what makes Tank so great. Okay, so first and foremost, we have to look at Tank's shot selection. He is excellent at picking the right punch at the right time. He's excellent at using setups, feints, touches, and small, very, very fractional movements to put himself in the best position to land in the best position to create as much damage as possible. He works the body exceptionally well and he picks them body shots well. He jabs nicely, occupies the lead hand from that southpaw stance so that he can't get picked apart with the orthodox lead hand of most of his opponents. And most importantly, he knows when to land with power and when to snap the shots without overcommitting. He's a fantastic shot selector. He's got great punch variety and he knows how to put himself in the right position, as I said, to land with power and also to be accurate in where he is hitting his opponents. That's really important because it's all well and good having tons of power. If you can't land accurately and hit the right areas, then you're not going to do a lot of damage. and Tank knows exactly where to hit people to do as much damage as possible. So one of his main assets and one of the key kind of facets to his power is shot selection. Let's look at another. Okay, so another really, really key thing that I mentioned there in passing is accuracy. He doesn't waste a lot of shots, okay? He's very accurate. He doesn't waste a lot of shots. He picks his punches and he makes sure that when he hits you, you know about it. Although that does result in him often losing on the cards early on in fights, what it means is that people become more and more wary of him as they come in because they know they're going to take shots. So they become more wary or more wild, one of the two. As they get more wary or more wild, they make more mistakes. They get more wary, they get more cautious. It enables him to back them up and then to pick shots off the back of that, to set them up, to put them on the ropes, to leave them in a weak position. Or they get more wild, as we saw with Ryan Garcia, and end up falling into punches, and as we saw with Romero, end up falling into punches. And as they fall into those punches, they get picked off with big shots that he throws very accurately to the correct spot, and that's the end of the fight. What you'll notice about his accuracy is also the way he throws his hand. His hand position is very, very important to how he maximizes his power. So he lands with the big knuckles, he arcs it in, the wrist is arced, the elbow raises, all of these factors that mean he can generate as much force as possible around that rotation without having to fall in and overcommit. It's a real snap in those shots, and that's why they do so much damage, no matter whether he's landing to the body with hooks, uppercuts, overhands, straight shots. I mean, the variety is there, and the guy is exceptional at utilizing it to land with accuracy and do as much damage as possible. Let's move on to the next one. Obviously power, okay? We have to talk about the power. Now, the two things that I've already mentioned, I put them in this order for a reason: punch selection and shot selection variation and accuracy tie into making him a very, very powerful puncher. But you have to have an element of natural power, and you have to have an element of that kind of aggressive nature in you to punch like that. You have to throw these shots like you want to hurt people. It just doesn't work otherwise. And let's be honest, there's very few boxers in the game who throw their punches with as much malice as Tank Davis. Now, he has, I would say, a very good level of natural athleticism that makes him able to generate power. He has the genetics of power. He obviously has good bone structure to be able to land hard. And you can see from the shape of his face, he's got them big cheekbones, a nice strong jaw. That's good bone structure. He's got the genetics of a man who should be able to fight. He's got the genetics of a fighting man. So as a result of that, I think all of those factors compound themselves. And then he has that natural power, which is augmented by excellent shot selection, excellent accuracy, and the thing that I'm going to mention right now, which is moving on to the fourth factor. Fitness. So this guy is incredibly fit. He knows how to work through the rounds, and as the fight progresses, he gets more and more active. A lot of his stoppages come late once he's figured out the timing, mid to late rounds, figures out the timing against his opponent. As I said earlier, hurts them as they're coming in, hurts them and picks them off with shots. But he may be losing on the cards, but it doesn't matter because he knows what's coming. He's getting closer and closer to that shot. He's getting closer and closer to that combination. And he's progressively pushing his opponent into a more negative mind space, which is either retreating and being in fear of the shots, or being wild and aggressive because they think they need to take him out and win the rounds. Now, this is something that is often overlooked in boxing, and to excel through the rounds and to progress with a greater level of output as the rounds go on, you've got to be a fit guy. You've got to remember, these fighters are taking punches from round 1 to 12, but 1 to 6, that's tiring. It takes it out of you. And what Tank does really well is he places himself with good footwork, shot selection, as I've mentioned already, and with good jab and control mechanisms. So even though he might be down on the cards, he's not wasting energy. His shot selection is good. He doesn't throw a lot away. So when it comes to them later rounds, he's still got plenty left in the tank to keep coming and take his opponents out, which is an excellent asset and something that he utilizes incredibly well. So there's not much I can say about that other than he trains hard, looks after himself, and works very, very hard to push himself to make sure he is in condition to beat these guys. I would argue that when he first came on the scene, he got a bit overexcited and a bit overzealous with these celebrations. Post-fight, we see him put a little bit of weight on, but I think he's more inclined now and has matured more now to the point where Coach Calvin Ford has got him staying on track in between fights, so he doesn't seem to blow up the same way, which is a really good asset. Something that we see other great fighters like Crawford and Nue and Canelo do all the time. Stay in shape, ready to fight. And with that, we move on to the final asset that I think is enormous for Tank Davis. Coach. You can't undervalue the importance of a very good coach who cares about your well-being as well as your boxing progress, who you have been invested with from the outset. Tank has been with Coach Calvin Ford since he was, I think 8 or 9, which is crazy. And the relationship that those two have is an enormous factor. Tank trusts Coach Calvin to give him the right advice, and that has been proven to be a good position, a good place to put your trust, because as of yet, he hasn't given any bad advice. He's very calm in the corner. He knows when to tell Tank to turn it up. He gives him understandable advice, and he gives him very simple advice in the corner. At the gym, he obviously works him hard. He gets the best out of him, and I think that's the kind of thing that you can't oversell the value of that. You know, Bomac for Crawford is an example of this. Reynoso for Canelo, Pacquiao and Roach, Mayweather and Roger or Floyd Sr. If you have a coach that you trust, then you give yourself to entirely, and that coach does the same, reciprocating that kind of investment, then you can get an enormous amount of value out of that relationship. And that's something that is very, very valuable in boxing, and over the course of boxing history, you can see innumerable examples of that working well. And in fact, the opposite is often a very negative thing. When fighters keep switching coaches, it ends up having a negative result and being detrimental to their career. So massive admiration for Coach Calvin. He obviously does a lot in the community as well, and he's brought on a lot of other fighters as well, but his work with Tank has been exceptional, and Tank has got that dog in him to do what needs to be done and get the victories. And I suppose I should mention that in passing, he's got that killer instinct, that fighter, that dog in him, just not to give up. It's not something that you can teach. It's something that has to be in you deep down, and very few fighters have that at an elite level. It's very easy to become undone at an elite level when things aren't going your way, and I do not think that is a worry for Tank. I think he's always going to keep trying no matter what, and I think his warrior spirit is there. So there we have it, guys. That is my breakdown of Gervonta Tank Davis, who I believe I would have in now probably the top 5 pound for pound on the planet. Exceptional boxer, great skill set. Those are some of the factors I think make him great. Any others that I've missed out, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. And big love to you all. Take care, guys.